Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to the next Elite Home Tutoring webinar. This webinar will be about geometry and trigonometry. If you weren't here on previous webinars, my name is Karen. I am the Associate Counselor here at Plexuss, and we have with us Christine, who is the tutor from Elite Home Tutoring. Thank you everybody for joining us today. I put in the chat to connect with Elite Home Tutoring. I put the link in the chat for you all so you all can access it through there. You can just go ahead and copy and paste that link into your browser to go ahead and connect with Elite Home Tutoring from there. While Christina's lecturing, you are free to let her know of any questions you might have. You're free to interrupt her with any questions you all might have. And you can do so by putting your question in the chat. You can send your question to everyone, or you can send your question to me privately. I am my counselor Karen on the participants, and then I will ask your question to Christine. Another way you can ask your question is by doing the raise hand option, and you can access that by clicking participants, and the raise hand option should be right there. You would then wait for me to call on you, so you will be able to talk to Christine directly and ask her your question. If you missed our previous webinars, all of those webinars are recorded and were recorded, and they are placed on our Plexuss YouTube page, which is called Plexuss Social Media. I will go ahead and put the link for you all for our Plexuss YouTube page in the chat so you all can access it after the webinar has ended. And that's it from me. Christine, let's get started.
Okay. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your work from home. Today we are going to be looking at the SAT math on geometry and trigonometry, which is not a huge part of the test of the math section, but it is there and it is significant. We've had previous questions about the comparison between the SAT math and the ACT math, and I will just say as an aside that the geometry is very similar, not necessarily the trigonometry. Between both tests, there are just a lot more of them on the ACT, a lot more plane geometry questions, same format, same special right triangles. So those of you that are thinking of taking both tests, I want to brush up on that geometry because it is about a third of the ACT. And so for the SAT math, we're talking about perhaps about 4 to 6 questions total out of the 58. So that's a smaller amount, but you do need to know. There's no reason to miss them. Let's get them right. Okay, I'm going to start by sharing the screen. Most of our time today will be on doing geometry and trigonometry problems from the practice tests that are available online through the College Board, tests 1, 2, and 4 that we've been looking at for other sections of the test. Not so much lecture because it's pretty straightforward. So that's probably good. That means you guys get your paper and pencil ready and a calculator. And we're going to put you guys to work a little bit. So let me pull up my screen. And there we go. Okay, SAT math and geometry, math, geometry, and trigonometry. The plane geometry that you will find on the test, and I would make a note of it, if you're weak in any of these spots, make sure to jot it down so you can review. Right triangles and the Pythagorean theorem. It's in the reference chart that's at the beginning of the math section of both the no calculator and the calculator. But as I said before, don't rely on going back to those formulas. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Know it by heart. It means you've been studying. It means you don't waste time looking for a reference chart. Also, you'll find on the test special right triangles, the 30, 60, 90, and the 45, 45, 90, and the relationship between the sides. It is, again, in the reference chart, but you're going to know it by heart so that you spot it when you see it. When you see a 30 or a 60 degree or a 45 degree angle in a triangle, or what could become a triangle, that's your alert to go, I need to use the special right triangle relationship in order to get this question right. Okay, next one, in plane geometry, you will see triangle congruency. They will give you equilateral and isosceles triangles. Equilateral means all 3 sides are the same, so all 3 angles are the same. Isosceles means two sides of the triangle are the same and opposite angles to those sides, therefore are also the same. That's all been a long time for you, then you want to review that. Okay. The circle, the circle on the geometry, you will find area, circumference, diameter, and radius, and those are also on the reference chart. You'll also have circle ratios, central angles, segments, and sectors. You don't need to know a special arc formula, but you do need to know how to play with circles and play with ratios on them. As far as more geometry goes, parallel lines and corresponding and alternate interior angles on the parallel lines will be tested. Intersecting lines, vertical angles, lines meet. Supplementary and complementary angles. Supplementary is angles add up to 180. Complementary adds up to 90. This probably goes back to the very beginning of high school or perhaps even middle school for most of you, but it is tested, and again, it's not straightforward. It's figuring out what they're asking for. You're also given the area and the volume of polygons and circles on the reference chart, and you'll be tested on them. Maybe 1 or 2 questions per test, not a big chunk. The trigonometry is very, very basic on the SAT. There's more detail in trigonometry, a couple extra questions on the ACT. The main thing you need to know is SOHCAHTOA. The meaning of sine, opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent, opposite over adjacent, and utilizing that. That's pretty much it. A couple of laws. I will try to point to one of them in our questions examples. So there's your theta. The sine of theta would be opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine of theta is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, and then the tangent does not use hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. Okay. Any questions about that? We'll save our questions for later. Okay. Next one. Okay, tips. Whoopsie. Tips for solving geometry questions. I am not an artist, so that's my rendition of a circle with a square inside of it. But number 1 is if there is no figure given, draw a figure. Don't keep it in your head. Even if it seems simple, draw a quick figure and label the figure completely from the information that's given in the question. Those are the first things to do. Ask yourself what information do you need to find to be able to answer the question. It's not going to be a question that's just, here's the radius, find the area. They'll throw you a curveball, and so you say, what do I need in order to get to the question? What do I know? What do I know? And you label everything. What info, and then when you get to a certain point and you're like, okay, I'm a little stuck, then you ask yourself, what information from the question have I not used? And then how can I use it to get to my answer? So you might think that seems pretty straightforward, but truthfully, in the speed of the test, you go, wait, I haven't used the fact that X is greater than Y or something of that nature. Then you go, I better apply that because that's going to get me to my answer. Okay, so that's the tips for our geometry and trig, and now we'll go straight to the questions. As I said, a lot of this you learned maybe in junior high, but you haven't taken a look at it recently. Okay, so here's our first one. Our second page will be with some explanation on it. Okay, so it's a trig related question. This is the added information I was talking about that is related to trig that you would want to know, and it's very common on the test to ask some question related to this. If the triangle above, in the triangle above, the sine of x degrees is 0.6 or 0.6. What is the cosine of y? Okay, I'll give you maybe 15 seconds to think about that, and then we'll go directly to the answer. Once you've seen this answer in explanation, you can apply it to many of the questions and you won't have to do a lot of work. Okay. So reread the question. It's a right triangle. And here we go. Okay. So you want to, the most important part about this is that you want to know the complementary angles relationship between sine and cosine. Otherwise, you're stuck having to label everything, solve, say that you would do sine of x is 0.6, which would be 6/10. Way too much work, not necessary, and not necessary about 85% of the time. The important complementary angle relationship is that the cosine of y is going to be equal to the sine of x. And you say, well, how do I need to memorize that or what? Okay, let's think it through. I've given our explanation down below. I crossed out the other question. And here's my explanation for you. So you have A, B, and C. So the sine of x is opposite over hypotenuse, which is A over C, not A over B. And I labeled it wrong. And then the cosine of y is adjacent over hypotenuse. So you end up with the sine of one angle is exactly the same as the cosine of the other angle. So therefore, sine of x is equal to the cosine of y. So therefore, the cosine of y is also 0.6. And so the answer is 0.6. You can either, this is in free response, so you don't need to do more work on it. You don't need to find each of the sides. You could say 0.6 on your free response, or you could say 0.6 in the free response. Be sure to bubble in the letters and the period, because that's what they go by, not by what you write at the top. Okay, next one. Here is a volume question. Okay, Jim has identical drinking glasses, each in the shape of a right circular cylinder with internal diameter of 3 inches. He pours milk from the gallon jug into each glass until it's full. If the height of the milk in each glass is about 6 inches, what is the largest number of full milk glasses that you can pour from 1 gallon of milk? Then they throw in this little extra curveball. 231 cubic inches is 1 gallon. So please draw your picture, because there is no picture. Label what you can, and in about 30 seconds, we will go to an explanation. If you don't know by heart the area, how to find the volume of a cylinder, it is the area of the base. So pi r squared, it's the circle, times the height. Pi r squared times the height. Okay. Next one. Write down what you know, and let's see how we can pull this apart. Okay. Notice I've underlined the word diameter. I've circled the word 3. I've underlined the word gallon, underlined height, and the height of the glass is 6 inches. And I've also circled 231. Okay, so draw a glass, know the formula, pi r squared times height, and now plug in. So I have 3.14 for our pi, radius squared, 1.5 squared. Notice it is not 3 squared, because that's the diameter, times 6, the height, is equal to 42.39. This is on the calculator section, as most of the geometry questions are. So you can use your calculator for it. Now divide, so that's our possible answer, but it says, what's the largest number of full milk glasses? So divide the glass volume into the 231, the total of the number of cubic inches in a gallon. So 4239 into 231 will give you 5.449. Go back to the question, make sure we're doing this right. What is the largest number of full glasses? So you can't round up to 6, you round down to 5. That's the number of full glasses. So the answer is C. Any questions? If not, I'll move on. Basic, but still needs to be known. Okay. 24, this is a circle related question. So in the circle above, segment AB is a diameter. If the length of ABD, notice where ABD is, ADB is 8 pi, what is the length of the radius of the circle? Okay, AB is the diameter, ADB is 8 pi. What is the length of the radius of the circle? So draw that on your paper, label what you can, ask yourself, what can I know? What do I know? What do I know? And what do I need to do to find the radius? Okay. Okay. Next question. There we go. Okay, so notice how I've labeled. I labeled 8 pi as from A through D to B. I also recognize that because AB is a diameter, that's a half a circle. Important, I know that. I know that's a half a circle. They kind of messed with you a little bit by calling that ADB an arc. It is an arc, but it's a half a circle. It's the circumference of half a circle. So you don't need an arc formula here. You want to know the radius. So we labeled everything. Ask yourself, how am I going to go about that? How am I going to find the radius? Hope you have an answer. If you said, I'm going to find the circumference of the whole circle and work backwards to find the radius, then you had the right idea. The circumference formula, 2 pi r, not pi r squared. Circumference is all the way around. Find the circumference of the whole circle by multiplying 8 pi times 2. That gives me 16 pi. Okay. Circumference of the circle, 16 pi. I know the formula. Make them equal to each other. 16 pi equals 2 pi r. Divide both sides by 2 pi. Without even touching your calculator, that means that the radius is 8. Check the question. The question said, what's the length of the radius? We're good. Not the diameter, so it is answer C. If there are no questions, we will go on to the next example of types of questions. Any questions? No. Awesome. Oopsie. Look at that. Hold on. Sometimes it gets a little stuck here. Okay, there we go. Okay, here is another arc formula equation. Okay, in the figure above, the circle has a center of O and has a radius of 10. If the length of arc AB, shown in bold, that's nice of them to do that for you, is between 5 and 6, what is one possible integer value of x? So label everything, draw your circle, label it, label the radius. Notice an arc. We don't need an arc formula. And they tell us that AB is something between 5 and 6. Okay, what's the value of x? That is the number of degrees of that angle. Okay, any thoughts? Any thoughts? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? Okay. There we go again. Okay. Central angle. Central angle. Notice I labeled the radius twice just to be clear. I said that AB is between 5 and 6. I circled X. I noted with a star by it that it says that the arc length is between 5 and 6. So when you're trying to use one of those numbers for that, do not put in 5 or 6. It will be wrong. It's between them. So that's important. I'm going to go with putting in 5.5 because that's right in the middle. Fortunately, I have a calculator, so I don't have to do a lot of math in my head. Okay, so again, what we've talked about in other parts of the math, we have to make a proportion. Make a proportion. Okay, so let's use our circumference formula. So basic information about plane geometry. You have to figure out how to get to where you need to go. What's the possible value of the angle that is included in the area between A and B? There's more than one possible answer. As long as you put an integer that's reflective of the information and not a decimal, you will get it right. There's about a few possibilities. So find the circumference of the whole circle. How do we do that? We have the radius, so pi r squared, 2 times 3.14 times 10. There's our circumference. Circumference 62.8. Set up a proportion for the question's rules. Proportion. So the circumference of the whole circle over the number of degrees of the whole circle is equal to the portion of the circle that they labeled somewhere between 5 and 6. So I just chose 5.5 over the number of degrees of that angle that's represented by the arc. So notice we've got equal things that we're comparing. Circumference, degrees of the whole circle, portion of the circle, number of degrees. And now we're going to cross multiply as we used to do many moons ago. 62.8 times x is equal to 360 times 5.5. Divide both sides by 62.8, and that gives you an answer of x being, which is the number of degrees, 31.52. I'm going to go back up. They're asking for an integer. It represents the number of degrees. So I'm going to go stick with something safe and just say 31, which is why I chose the number smack in the middle. And that gives you one answer choice of 32. Anywhere between 29 and 34 would have been okay, as long as you don't use 5 or 6, but anything in between. Move on here. Trying to get to as many possible examples since there's such a variety here. I did not do that right. Try again. Okay, there we go. Two things at once. Okay, so here is our next question. Number 36, not number 35. This one is a little bit complicated. In the figure above, point O is the center of the circle. Line segments LM and MN are tangent to the circle at points L and N, respectively, and the segment intersect at point M as shown. If the circumference of the circle is 96, what is the length of the minor arc LN? Okay, so this is a number 36. There are only 38 on the calculator section. So this is one of the more challenging ones, and you're running out of time. Okay, so let's pick it apart. Draw your circle, draw your 60-degree angle, and your central angle. Label what you can, and we'll take a look at this. This will be our last problem for the day. Okay. I have to switch screens to get to. Let's see here. Oh, I got to stop sharing for a second. Okay. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So, okay, there it is. Okay. And we got it. Okay. Angle, circumference, proportions. Okay, so I circled the word tangent, and I underlined the fact that the circumference is a circle of the circle is 96. And I put a red arc over LN. So a tangent, we labeled the figure, tangent to the circle means that it's making a 90-degree right angle with the radius. So I marked that. I marked our right angles. Right angles. Here's your special right triangle. You don't really need the special right, but you need to recognize that we can make two triangles out of this shape by putting a line through the middle. A line through the middle. So that's what you want. You want to think triangles. How can I make a triangle out of this to get to where I need? Okay. So we made a triangle, a line to make two triangles. That split the 60 degrees into two 30s, which means that these have to be 60 because it's a 30, 60, 90. We now know the number of degrees of LON is 120. Make two right triangles to make LMNO to find central angle LON. Make a proportion. Again, no need to figure out arcs or arc length with a formula. What's our proportion? What's our proportion? 120, because this is now we know, we figured out how many degrees that is 120. 120 angle LON over 360, the whole circle, is equal to X, that's arc LN, which 120 is a part of, over the circumference of the whole circle, 96. Okay, let's take a look at that again before we move on. So we had 120 for LON over 360, the whole circle, equals X, here to here, the portion of the circumference, that's L to N, out of 96, the whole circle, the whole circumference. So there we go, 120 out of 360, X over 96. You can reduce it if you want, but since you have a calculator, there's no reason to really. We're going to cross multiply again, things we did a long time ago. So 120 times 96 equals 360x. That gives us, with our calculator, 11,520. When you divide both sides, you get 30 by 360, you get 32 for x. Double check that that's what they're asking for. Always, always, always. What is the length of minor arc LN? Yes, it is. So our answer, which we would write by free response again, is 32. Okay, so now I am open to look at any of the ones that we have done. If you have any questions about them or about this question or any other math related questions, because on Monday we will be looking at the essay for the test. Okay. Karen?
Are there any questions about the math section of the SAT? In the meantime, I do have a question.
Mhm.
Will there be geometry and trigonometry in both the no calculator and the calculator section, or just the calculator section?
The majority will be on the calculator section, but there will be a few in the no calculator. They might give you one that we did that was the where the cosine of y is equal to the sine of x, because they want to see if you know that law. So yeah, very straightforward ones, and they're more likely also to have, which we didn't get to, was one of the next ones, parallel lines and corresponding angles would be on the no calculator.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
I do have another question also, but let me wait.
Yeah. I
Just
hope you
wait
guys
30
understood
seconds.
those. Yeah. I hope you guys understood those well. That's great.
Okay, my other question is, until what level of math are students expected to know? I guess to rephrase that question is like, do students have to know any math above the 11th grade?
No, no. Algebra 2 trig.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. If you don't know, if you have not learned trig, you'll miss probably a couple questions. But notice that if you learn SOHCAHTOA, which is what I talked about at the beginning, that basics of opposite over hypotenuse, you're probably going to get them all right. You're probably going to nail them. You won't have missed anything. You don't need to know pre-calc even.
All right.
Okay.
So it looks like we don't have any questions.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. All right, so our next webinar, as Christina mentioned, is the SAT. It will be on the SAT essay. It will be on strategies, and it will be on Monday, April 27th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that will be this coming Monday. We very much appreciate it if you download our app. If you download our Plexuss app, you'll be able to receive instant notifications. We're also very much appreciate if you rate it and review our app. We appreciate any feedback you're able to give us. Also, if you are loving these webinars, go ahead and rate them and review them on the App Store or Google Play. Next is chat with my counselor. Ask my counselor if you have any questions regarding this webinar. If you would like to reach out about your journey to higher education, we are always happy to help in answering those questions as well. Connect with Elite Home Tutoring on Plexuss. I put the link in the chat in the beginning of the webinar and in the introductory notes. Another way you can access their profile is by clicking on the logo at the top of the Plexuss newsfeed page. You will see the banner with the Elite Home Tutoring webinar info and their logo, which is on the left-hand side, and it will take you to their profile so you can connect with them from there. And also, it is not on the list, but if you missed our previous webinars, as I mentioned in the beginning, they are located on our Plexuss YouTube page. It is called Plexuss Social Media. Okay, yeah. And then this webinar will be available within 24 hours if you would like to revisit it. And that is it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you all for the next webinar on the SAT essay strategies. Bye, everybody.